Asmadacharya Pariyandam Vande Guru Parambaram Vayyagam Yan Poigai Budam Peyalvar Maishergon Magalmaran Mudrikavi Poyil Pugal Koyergon Vittichittan Pungode Tondaredi Podipanalvar Ayyan Arul Kaliyan Etirasar Tambodu Ariruvar Oruvar Avardam Seida Tuya Tamil Irvatinan Ginpart Tintoge Nalairamum Adiongal Varve. Good day, everybody. It's a pleasure meeting again. And today we are going to share some knowledge on the 5 manifestations of Perumal. The 5 is a very interesting number because today we are on the 5th day of Margazhi Masam, which is Tirupava's 5th Pasuram. So a lot of coincidence today. So what is this manifestation? Where does it come from? We all know there are some agamas in terms of our worship. So we have 2 primary agamas in Sri Vaishnava or Visishtadvaita school of thought. One is Pancharatra Agama, the other is the Vaikhanasa Agama. Pancharatra, as it says, again another 5. Pancharatra, as it says, in 5 nights, Perumal advised or gave Upadesam to 5 of his ayudams: Sangh, Chakram, Gadam, Shargam, and Katti, your knife. For each of these ayudams, Perumal gave Upadesam on one on each night over 5 nights. And that became the Pancharatra Agama. As Pancharatra Agamam, what exactly is this is Perumal manifests himself in 5 different forms. Now, we always mention Perumal as Bhagavan as one term. You use the term Bhagavan to many people, but primarily it comes to Perumal, and Bhagavad Gita also Arjuna addresses Krishna as Bhagavan. The term Bhagavan is very interesting. It is not just a term, but it signifies that one who possesses 6 primary qualities. There are many qualities which we will see later when we enjoy Bhagavad Ramanuja's works later. But there are 6 primary qualities. If it is there, then that person becomes Bhagavan. What is those qualities? Jnana, Bhala, Virya, Aishwarya, Shakti, Tejas. Jnanam, Bhalam, Viryam, Aishwaryam, Shakti, Tejas. If these 6 primary qualities are there, then he is worshipped as Bhagavan. And these qualities, of course, the definition of all these things are immense. So these qualities with that definition applies only to Sriman Narayana. So we call him as Bhagavan. So the Bhagavan manifests primarily, where does he live, is as Paravasudevan. What we commonly call as Paramapadam or Sri Vaikuntham is Paravasudevan. That is where Perumal exhibits his full nature as Paravasudevan. So that is the first manifestation where he is in Paramapadam or Sri Vaikuntham as Paravasudevan. Now, this Paravasudevan is, or Paramapadam is there in our Vedas, is there in our Acharya scriptures. Who has seen it? Only Muktatmas has seen it. That is the place which is accessible only to 2 sets of people. One is Nityatmas. Who are Nityatmas? Garuda, Adisesha, and all the are Nityatmas. And Muktatmas, all our Purvacharyas, Alvars, who attained moksha and are in eternal service to Perumal are called Muktatmas. So Paramapadam or Sri Vaikuntham is accessible to Nityatmas and Muktatmas. Now this Paravasudevan makes himself accessible in the next layer as a Vyuha Vasudevan. First manifestation, the original form is Paravasudevan. The next manifestation is called Vyuha Vasudevan. Where does this Vyuha Vasudevan is there? He is in Tirupparkadal, Shirabdi, or science calls it the Milky Way. The Shirabdi or Tirupparkadal is where his second manifestation is there. There it is called Vyuha Vasudevan. Vyuham as a term is called as, can be classified as sub-manifestation. Here, Perumal manifests himself in multiple forms in Vyuham. One is as Vasudevan himself, as Sri Krishna or Vasudeva himself. Then as Shankarshana, as his brother, which is Balarama. Then as Pradyumna, as Krishna's son. And as Aniruddha, as Krishna's grandson. So in Shirabdi, in his next manifestation, he is there as Vyuha Vasudevan. In Vyuha Vasudevan, he makes himself into 4. One is Krishna himself, is called Vasudevan. Then Shankarshanan, which is otherwise called Balarama, his brother. Then Pradyumnan as Krishna's son. And Aniruddhan as Krishna's grandson. So he manifests himself in 4 forms. Now these 4 forms, why is this needed is, Pradyumnan takes care of creation, Aniruddhan takes care of protection, Shankarshanan takes care of destruction. And Vasudevan, who is Krishna himself, is the supervisor or controlling authority who supervises all three, performing the roles perfectly. So this is how he manifests in Vyuha form. Now we are all familiar with Dwadasa Tirunamam of Perumal. Whenever we do what do you call Sandhyavandanam, whenever those who perform Samashranam will have 12 Tiruman Sricharnam in their body and they have names along with that. So those names are basically Keshava, Narayana, Madhava, all that is there, right? So these four forms, three names apply to each of these four forms. So Vasudevan as Sri Krishna, Keshava, Narayana, Madhava applies to Sri Krishna. Govinda, Vishnu, Madhusudana applies to Shankarsana or Balarama. Trivikrama, Vamana, Sridhara applies to Pradyumna, the Krishna's son. And Rishikesa, Padmanabha, Dhamodara applies to Aniruddha. So the Vyuha Vasudevan or Vyuha is where? From where he makes himself accessible to the Devas. Again, not to humans or lesser mortals like us. He makes himself accessible to Indra, Vayu, everybody, Varuna and everybody, and all the Rishis and Sages with that Tava Balam, who can go and access Perumal in Vyuha Vasudevan or Tirupparkadal. So this is where he manifests the very important, because from there only the rest of the things happen. So what is the third manifestation? Vibhava Avatara. Vibhavam means avatharams. All those incarnations, the Dasavataram, his incarnations are not limited to Dasavataram. There are many avatarams, but this Dasavataram we worship in a particular process. So all this is called Vibhavam. So he decides to take a form for a particular reason. We all know why he took Matsya Avatar to teach to teach Satyavrata and protect the rishis, everybody, and all that. He took Matsya Avatara. Then Kurma Avatara, we know he wanted to churn the Tirupparkadal to get the Amudam, so he takes Kurma Avatara. We know Varaha Avatara he takes to protect and save Bhuma Devi. Then we know Narsimha Avatara to protect Prahlada. So like this, every Avatara has got a specific set of time and period and a reason for which he is there for a limited period. In fact, Narsimha Avatara is supposed to be the shortest Avatara, 1.5 Muhurtam, which is probably 45 minutes to maximum 1.5 hours. That's all the entire Avatar itself. Then we know the Avatar of Rama Krishna, who had longer years, 100 plus years, or more than that, in this Bhulogam. And he takes various Avataras. So that is his third manifestation, Vibhava Avatara. The fourth manifestation is Antaryami. He is there as Paramatma in every Jivatma. He is there inside you, he is there inside beings, he is there in anybody whom we see. Our whole concept of Namaste comes from the fact that we are worshipping the divinity in the others, the Paramatma in the other person. That is why we always fold our hands and do Namaste. The Anjali Mudra is very powerful. We'll talk again about that later. So Antaryami, he is inside everybody, whether we like it or not, whether we accept it or not, whether we want or not, Perumal is inside each one of us fully. And this has got, the Puranas say in a very beautiful way, it's like two Pakshis sitting on a branch. One Pakshi is enjoying all the fruits, picking up all the fruits and eating, other Pakshi is quietly watching, doing nothing. Exactly like that, our Jivatma is enjoying the life, doing whatever we want to do, while Paramatma is sitting there quietly watching us as Shakshi Bhutam. Even if you think you are completely isolated on an island with nobody in 100-kilometer radius, Paramatma is with us. So we are never alone. Paramatma is always with us, and he is there as Shakshi Bhutam, doing just watching what we are doing. The extension to this, a lot of people ask, if that is there, then why there are people who commit crimes, cannot Perumal stop them and all those things. That's a different subject. We'll turn to later. Here is fourth manifestation is that he is Antaryami. He is inside each one of us all the time. The Antaryami Perumal is extremely important because he is with us, he is helping us wake up, he is helping us walk us, do everything. And it is important we realize and worship him as much as we worship Perumal in our homes and temples and all that. Now, why is that? That is why people, elders have said, our eating is a yajna by itself, as good as an yajna that we do normally with the wood and fire and all those things. That is why how we eat, what we eat, there are a lot of rules because of that, because we are not just eating for us, we are actually offering food to Paramatma who is inside us. So that is why Sattvika food, the way we prepare, what we prepare, everything is defined in a rule just because of that. So that is the fourth manifestation. So first manifestation is Paravasudevan. Second manifestation is Vyuha Vasudevan. Vyuha Vasudevan further sub manifests himself as Vasudeva Shankrishana Pradyumna Aniruddha. Then we have third, which is Vibhava manifestation, which is all the incarnations that he takes. Fourth manifestation is Antaryami. He is there in every Jivatma, inside Jivatma, Sakshi Bhutam, and is with us. And last but not the least is the Archa form. The Archa or Murti form that we worship in every temple, the Saligra Murti that we worship every at our homes, are the Archa Murti. Archanai, the word comes from the Archa Murti. Worshipping the Archa is basically Archanai. So this is very important because the Archa Murti, if he does not decide to show up like an Archa Murti, we won't even know how he is there. Because we have to read the scriptures to understand. It is the Archa Murti that depicts what is there in our scriptures, so that we know this is how Rama looks, this is how Krishna looks, this is how Ranganatha looks, and this is how Narsimha is there. So it's very, very important to understand Archa Murti is there because of his benevolence. It's not that somebody has constructed a temple and gone. So Archa Murti is extremely important that we look at Archa and a much more reverence. In fact, our Alvar Acharyas have all performed the Sharanagati to Archamurti, not to Paravasudevan, not to Vyuha, not to any of the Vibhava, not even to the Antaryami Perumal, but to Archa Roopam, because of that importance that we have in all our kovils. The standard thing everybody asks, in fact, we are allowed to ask a lot of questions. That's the greatness of our Sanatana Dharma. When you say God is there everywhere, when you say Perumal is there, Antaryami inside each one of us, why should I go to a kovil and then worship? Can I not be myself? Yes, you can. That is the highest level of bhakti that you can show, that we can look at Perumal everywhere, look at Perumal and realize that he is inside each one of us, and then start worshipping. Yes, if you are able to show that dedication, that bhakti, that shraddha and everything. There is a lot of Puranic stories. There were in a small village, a very poor person was worshipping Perumal in the nearby temple, also thought about having Krishna in his house and was thinking how he'll perform the Aradhana for him, how he'll perform the Tiru Alankaram for Krishna. And one such night, he was thinking that I should put him a lovely golusu or sarangai to Perumal. And he was visualizing that and dreams of it and sleeps. Next day morning, he even names it in his dream that he is Sadangai Alage Perumal. What name I should give to this Perumal? Because he's got a lovely salangai or golusu. I will name him as Sadangai Alage Perumal. He thinks about it and sleeps off. Next morning, his neighbor comes and knocks saying, I heard that you have a new Perumal at your house. Can I have darshan? He says, what Perumal? Sadangai Alage Perumal. He is surprised and stunned because this is what he thought in his mind. But Perumal loves it so much because of the bhakti and shraddha that this person shows. Perumal is proudly telling everybody in the place, saying that I am in this house as Sadangai Perumal. So the love for Perumal we show need not be material all the time. It is the shraddha and dedicated bhakti that we show, but to the Archa Murti, because we can't otherwise, human mind cannot control ourselves or visualize some things unless we know the scriptures in deep. So here he manifests himself as in a particular form, a Murti, like Rama, Krishna, Narsimha and all that. So that the Archa Murti is there. That is his fifth manifestation. So the other question that most of us ask, in fact, the next generation children ask is, why should I go to temple? Why should I recite slokas and all those things? The kovils are not just buildings. They are made with a lot of science into it. The Mula Garbhagraham, the Sanctum Sanctorum, cannot be constructed in any place. There is a lot of science into it where the highest power is there, and that is why there were a lot of rules out there. If you watch closely in our scriptures how our elders lived and how we are expected to go to a kovil, men have to go in traditional wear, which means we are 99% topless. And women are expected to go with a lot of gold ornaments when they visit kovil. Now, gold ornaments for women is not to show off. Men expecting them to be topless again is very important. It's the way we dress up. There is so much of positive energy there in that kovil that when you do the pradakshanam and all that, from the Garbhagraham, you actually attract those positive energy. A metal, and normally bare body will attract it faster because we have to attract faster. Because of that, men are expected to go bare body. And because women to ensure that they also get the power, gold ornaments are being prescribed because they also attract that power as much as we can when we perform the pradakshanam in any kovil that we do, because kovil has got a lot of science into it. It is our entire system has got science which leading to bhakti, eating leading to bhakti, harvesting or farming leading to bhakti. Everything is leading to bhakti, but everything has got a lot of science and a process into it. And because of that, the Archa roopam is very important. So when we speak of kovil, there is so much that we discuss. And when we normally do our Sandhyavandanam or any Tiruvaradhana Kramam, we end with Sriranga Mangalanidham Karuna Nivasam, Sri Venkadadri Sigaralaya Kalavegam, Sri Hastisaila Sigarojjvala Parijadam, Sri Sam Namami Sirasa Yadusaila Deepam. We normally recite these four, looking at four different directions. Assuming we are all in Chennai, when we say Sriranga Mangalanidham Karuna Nivasam, we take 2 steps towards south. Then we turn the other side, which will be west. We say Sri Venkadadri Sigaralaya Kalamegam. Then we turn east and say Sri Hastisaila Sigarojjvala Parijadam. Then we come towards this direction and say Sri Sam Namami Sirasa Yadusaila Deepam. Basically, 4 important temples are cornerstones of Vaishnavism. Sriranga Mangalanidham Karunanivasam, obviously Srirangam. So we always supposed to take every day, we are expected to take at least 2 steps, thinking that these are the steps I'm taking towards Srirangam. Range Range, Dine Dine Ranga Yatra is what they say. So every day you think I have to take 2 steps towards Srirangam. So Sriranga Mangalanidham Karunanivasam, Sri Venkadadri Sigaralaya Kalamegam. Venkadadri, we know is Thiruvengadam, Tirupati. So that is the other direction. Sri Hastisaila Sigarojjvala Parijadam, which is Kanchipuram, Varadaraja Perumal Kovil. Sri Sam Namami Sirasa Yadusaila Deepam, Tirunarayanapuram or Melakote is the 4th Kovil. Out of these 4, the Srirangam, Thiruvengadam and Kanchipuram are Divyadesams, and Melakote is an Abhimanasthalam. Now, when we talk of Kovil, the next extension is what is a Divyadesam. So we are now focusing more on Archa Roopam because Archa is the benevolence of Perumal to show himself up so that we can go and worship him. When we worship him, he generates a lot of positive energy, and that's why there are rules, and that's why kovils are formed in a particular fashion. The Agama rules, whether it is Pancharatra Agama or Vaikanas Agama, basically Agama are rules which will say how to place the main idol, what sanadhis to come where, and how one is supposed to worship is defined in this Agama. The primary purpose is Bhakti Shraddha, at the same time to each and every one of us benefit. I can guarantee 100%, irrespective of our state of mind, if you enter into any kovil, particularly the traditional Divyadesams or kovils that has been constructed in the form, we will find a completely different mindset the moment you enter and when you come back. Because there's so much of positive energy out there, the mantras that we recite, Sanskrita, Bhasha itself is phonetics based, and the phonetic sounds are supposed to give certain vibrations which are positive. The mantras are supposed to do that. So that is where all these things accumulate towards the Archa manifestation of Perumal. So out of all the kovils, whichever place in which a kovil is there, if it is mentioned by an Alvar, it becomes Divyadesam. So somewhere he says Kachi. So all the Perumal kovils in Kanchipuram becomes Divyadesam. Though Kanchipuram itself is a Divyadesam. In fact, you will see if there are references to Kovil, Anbil, for example, which is near Trichy and Srirangam, there is only one Pasuram of Tirumangi Alvar, which just mentions Anbil once. But because it is mentioned by an Alvar, it becomes one among the 108 Divyadesams. There are 108 Divyadesams. What are Divyadesams? Any Desams mentioned by Alvar in their Nalayira Divya Prabandham becomes a Divyadesam. So it can have 100 Pasarams, like for example, Srirangam has got 247 Pasarams out of 4,000. Tirupati has got 206 Pasarams out of this 4,000. Anbil has got one word in a Pasaram. It's not the whole Pasaram is not dedicated to Anbil. As I mentioned, it will come along with Tiruvul, everything. It will also come as Anbil, but still it is a Divyadesam. As long as the Divyadesam's word has come from the mouth of an Alvar, it is a Divyadesam. So that is how we define Divyadesam. So Melakotai, Madhurandagam, for example, are not Divyadesams. There are kovil like this which are called Abhimanasthalams, where our Acharyas have performed a lot of work. Melakotai, Bhagavad Ramanuja, Swami Desikan have performed a lot of Kainkaryam there. Madhurandagam is where Swami Bhagavad Ramanuja had his Pancha Samskaram. which is Samasharanam. So Bhadrantakam becomes an Abhimana Sthalam, but not a Divyadesam. So what happens is in this, when we talked about Divyadesams, three temples take precedence. In Sri Vaishnava Lingo, when anybody says na koilukku poren without any adjective or pre-qualifier to it, that means we are going to Srirangam. Moment we say Kovil, it is only Srirangam. But we have to say, I am going to Puliyappan Kovil. I am going to Sarangamani Kovil. I am going to Parathaswami Kovil. I am going to Kovil is Srirangam. Is assumed as Srirangam. How do we get this? Is because again Swami Desikan's works in Tamil Pravandam, ஆறாவது அருளமுதம் பொதிந்த கோயில் அம்புயத்தோன் அயோத்தி நகர் அளித்த கோயில் தோலாது தனிவீரன் தொழுத கோயில் துணையான வீடனர்க்கு துணையாம் கோவில் சேராத பயனெல்லாம் சேர்க்கும் கோயில் செழுமறையின் முதல் எழுத்து சேர்ந்த கோவில் தீராத வினை அனைத்தும் தீர்க்கும் கோவில் திருவரங்கம் என திகழும் கோவில் தானே. He says கோவில் 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 and finally says திருவரங்கம் என திகழும் கோவில் தானே. So that is how we always identify Srirangam as the primary. It's a Bhuloga Vaikundam. It is the first and most important kovil that we all have to worship and perform our kaingaryams and be more attached with. Then, of course, Tirupati, we all know, Malai, Verpu in Tamil, or Malai means always Tirumalai. So, Thiruvendramudiyan Kovil is also another one that we say. So, Kovil, Tirumalai is the next one, the term that we use, which is Tirupati Kovil. When we say we are going to Perumal Kovil, that means Kanchipuram, Varadaraj Perumal Kovil. Every Kovil is Perumal Kovil. Wherever Vishnu Kovil, we say it's Perumal Kovil, Athbhagatla Perumal Kovil. But generally in the lingo, when you say I'm going to Perumal Kovil, it is always Varadaraj Perumal Kovil. Now this Varadaraj Perumal Kovil is very interesting because Varam Tarum Kovil, Varada Rajan. So he grants you anything you want. That's why Varadarajan is special. And so many acharyas, so many alvars, and of course the Purvacharya lineage have shown equal amount of love towards Varadarajan as they show the love towards Srirangam. Everybody is showing love to Srirangam, no doubts about it. It's unqualified. In fact, out of the 12 alvars, if you keep aside Madarakavi Alvar and Andal as independent, at 10 alvars, all the 10 alvars have sung about Srirangam. But one alvar did not sing about Tirupati. Only 9 alvars sang about Tirupati. Tondaradipodi alvar sang all his pasarams only to Ranganathan. He did not sing about Tirupati Perumal or any other Perumal. So all 10 alvars have sung on Srirangam. 9 alvars have sung on Tirupati, and many alvars have sung on the remaining things. But Perumal Koil becomes very interesting because Swami Desikan, for all his love and in fact physical protection of Srirangam during the Mughal invasion, Swami Desikan did a lot of things. We'll talk about it when we speak about Swami Desikan Charitra, where in spite of all that efforts, he performs Saranagati at Kanchipuram, Varadaraj Perumal. In his Adakkala Pattu, he says, Patti Mudalam Avatril Padi Enakku Koodamal, Yeddu Seyam Udanrodi Electhu Vidum Kagam Pol, Mukti Tharum Nagarezhil Mukkiyamam Kachchidannil, Atthigiri Arulalanukku Adakkalam Naan Pugundhene. Mukti Tharum Nagar 7. There are 7 places which can give Mukti. Mukkiyamam Kachi, out of the 7, Mukkiyamam Kachchidannil, Atthigiri Arulalanukku Adakkalam Naan Pugundhene. This is where Swami Desikan is also performing the Saranagati. When his friend is offering him a job in the king's court, where he can earn more money because Swami Desikan lived in abject poverty with all the knowledge, but he was only focused on Kaingaryam. He refused and says, Nasti Pitrarjidam Kinchit, Namaya Kinchitarchidam, Asti me Hasti Sailagre, Vastu Paita Maham Dhanam. Nasti Pitrarjidam Kinchit. I don't have property from the family or ancestral property. Namaya Kinchitarchidam. I have not earned money. But Hasti me Hasti Sailagre, the Hasti Mala Mele, Vastu Paita Maham Dhanam. My great grandfather has got the biggest wealth there. Great grandfather is Brahma. It is on the Brahma's Yajna that Kanchipuram Varadaraj Perumal comes up, incarnates during the Velvi Thilen Urar. In fact, if you see Kanchipuram Varadaraj Perumal closely, you will see a lot of scars in his face because he came from the fire of the Brahma's Velvi. So, Vastu Paita Maham Dhanam. I have the biggest wealth which is kept in Kanchipuram, is Hastigiri, which that is my wealth, is what he says. So, even then, he shows only Varadaraja as his wealth. He doesn't show Tirupati Perumal because we all know today we want wealth. People go only to Tirupati. Very few people go to Kanchipuram. But Swami Desikan has shown us the direction that Kanchipuram Varadaraj Perumal is the wealth, eternal wealth that we have. So that is how they showed their love. In Thiruvaimozhi, first Pasaram and Swami Nammalvar also, Uyarvara Uyarnalam Udayavan Yavanavan, Mayarvara Madinalam Arulinan Yavanavan, Ayarvara Amarargal Adhipati Yavanavan, Tuyararu Sudaradi Todadal Manane is what he says there. There's no reference to Kachi, but he's talking about Deva Perumal or Varadaraja Perumal. Uyarvara Uyarnalam Udayavan Yavanavan, Mayarvara Madinalam Arulinan Yavan, Ayarvara Amarargal Adhipati Yavanavan. Amarargal is Devar. Devadi Devan. Devarajan is one of the names we call Varadarajan. So he's also performing in Saranagati. Toyararu, Sudaradi, Toyadaran Manane was hence the first pasaram of Tiruvaimuri. He's also worshipping Kanchi Varadaraja Perumal. So this is how these three Perumal, Kovil, Tirumalai, Perumal Kovil and Archa Roopam are blessing us. An extension of this, if you go further, the enjoying his fifth manifestation as Archa Roopam in our own Tiruvallikeni, you have 5 importance under this. Now, I always recommend people to have Tiruvallikeni darshan. Because we all belong to Chennai, we have done that enough. But never use the paid darshan. Always go in the Dharma darshan, because otherwise you'll miss out lovely darshanams. So what happens in Tiruvallikeni is, first is, it's a very unique Kovil. It will have 2 Dvajastambams, one on the main entrance, one in the Thalliya Singa Perumal Kovil entrance. So there are 2 entrances, 2 Dvajastambams, which is again very rare. And then when you come in Pradakshanam, assuming you enter from the main entrance, as we enter itself, we'll have Garuda Darshanam, and Parthad is so benevolent, he will show from the distance so we can have darshan. And when you come in Pradakshanam, we'll have Tayar Sanadi, Vedavalli Tayar Sanadi. Then we will have Gajendra Varada Sanadi. The first thing is eternal Garuda Seva. The Moolavar itself will be in Garuda Vaganatha Melarpar. Eternal Garuda Seva. Because Garuda Seva, normally you have to go to Kanchipuram in Vaigasi Masam, which is the best darshan of Garuda Seva in this part that we can have. So that Garuda Seva is eternally available in Tiruvallikeni. So we can go and have Gajendra Varadan. And then when you go Pradashanam and come, you will have darshan of Tirumashi Alvar. Then go to the second Dvajastambam, come and worship. You will have Narsimha in Yoga Narsimha form. So that is the second Perumal that will be there. Then when you take continue the Pradashanam and come through the Dharma Darshanam queue, you will find Ramar. Then you will find Ranganath, Mannada Perumal as he called this. He will also be lying there in that posture. And then the main sanctorum, you will have Venkata Krishna. Partha Sarathi is the name for the Utsavar. The Moolavar is called Venkata Krishna. Now the interesting part of the Moolavar in Tiruvallikeni is, he is there with the family. Parsadi Perumal will be, Venkata Krishna will be standing. Next to him is Rukmani Pirati will be standing. You will also find Balarama. You will also find Aniruddha. You will also find Pradyumna in the main sanctum sanctorum in Parthasarathi Kovil. Now we saw the Vyuha manifestation. The replica of that you will find in Parthasarathi Kovil, where Perumal as Venkata Krishnan standing there, Tayar is there as Rukmani Pirati, and then you'll have Balarama, you have Aniruddha and Pradyumna. It's an amazing Kovil right at the heart of the city, where you have all these 5 Perumals. Now comes the interesting part. The worshipping Parthasarathi Perumal, Parthasarathi Kovil with all these sanctums is equivalent to going to Kovil Tirumali Perumal Kovil. Why is that? In Kovil, who is there? Ranganathan is there. We have Mannada Perumal in lying posture here, who is also called Ranganathan. Then we have Tirumalai. Tirumalai is what? Tirupati Perumal is there. Now the main sanctum Perumal is, as I said, is called Venkata Krishna. There is a Raja by name Sumati who was worshipping, was doing a lot of Kaingaryam to Tirupati Perumal. They were so close that sometimes Tirupati Perumal used to give the Sankan Chakram to Sumati. The Raja's name is Sumati, is a man, and say, keep it for some time, I will take it from you later. They were that close. So this Raja used to do so much of Kaingaryam, and then at some stage he said, Perumal, I like you so much, but sometimes I want to worship you with just 2 hands, not with your 4 hands. I'm just seeing you with always with 4 hands. Perumal said, noted, I will grant you this boon whenever the right time is coming. Then there was another Munivar who was praying Perumal that Tirupati Perumal should come here and give darshan in Tiruvallikeni. Tiruvallikeni is also called as Brindaranyam. So it's original name, the Puranic name. So there was a Rishi was praying. So to combine these 2 wishes, Perumal came here as Krishnan. First, Tiruvenkadamudiyan who came as Krishnan, because this Munivar wanted to have darshan of Krishna, and this Raja wanted Tiruvenkadamudiyan with only 2 arms and not 4 arms. So they combined these 2 and came as Venkata Krishnan. here. That is why he's called Venkada Krishnan. Thiruvenkadamudiyan, so is there as Krishnan. So worshipping the main sanctum is as good as going to Tirupati and worshipping. That is the second thing. Then we said Gajendra Vardhan is also there, who is nothing other than Varadaraja Perumal here. So Kovil, Mannada Perumal is there, Tirumalai Venkada Krishnan is there, Gajendra Vardhan, Kanchipuram Perumal is also there. So worshipping this Perumal in Tiruvallikeeni, we can have Kovil, Tirumalai Perumal Kovil Darshan here itself. Then we also have Rama in standing posture. Then we have Narasimha in sitting posture. So in one temple, we have Perumal in standing posture, sitting posture, and reclining posture. Most temples will also have these sanadhis and all that. But interesting thing is, Tirumangai Alvar has sung for each of this Perumal individually. He is not just sung about the location or Tiruvallikeeni as a Divyadesam. He has gone and sung about each of the Perumals. The same Tirumangai Alvar would have sung about, say, Sarangamani Koil. He would have just said Kudandai and left it like that and generally talked about Perumal there. But here in Tiruvallikeeni, the blessing is that we have the Alvar's Pasarans for each of the Sanadhis. So main, the Venkata Krishnan, we have for the Mannada Perumal, we have for the Rama, we have for Gajendra, we also have for Narasimha. So that makes this temple very, very unique. And we can have darshan. And also another interesting thing, மீசையோடு இருக்கிற ஒரே பெருமாள் இவர் தான். பாக்கி எல்லா இடத்துலையும் கிளீன் ஷேவன் பளிச்சுன்னு இருப்பார். இந்த கோவிலில் வந்து you will find him with மீசை. As we speak, from today, for next 4 days, if any people in Chennai, if you can manage to go and have darshan at Tiruvallikeeni, please go. These 4 days, he will be without mustache. There's only 4 days in a year. His mustache is removed. And the rest of the time, he says mush. So you can also have darshan without mustache. Luckily, as we speak, 20th to 23rd, if I'm correct, only 4 days, he will be giving us, blessing us with the seva without mustache. So that is the greatness of Archaravam. Now, we are talking about this Tiruvallikeeni Kovil. We spoke about Kanchipuram, we spoke about Srirangam and Thiruvenkadam. All these are the fifth manifestation of Archa. All these are different anubhavams that Perumal gives us. Like all these different forms, different utsavams, different alankarams, Sathupudi as we call, in all these things. Why? Because for our benevolence. We can enjoy Perumal in any way. That's because one devotee with due love and affection dreamt of having Krishna with his Sadangai. He is happy to call himself Sadangai Alagya Perumal and don the Salangai, which is imaginary, not even physical. It's not that he's a wealthy person or he gave something to Krishna. He just thought it is the pure bhakti and love. And with this manifestation, the Archa manifestation is what makes accessible. Perumal makes himself accessible and also for us to go and eternal. Because the Purvacharyas have referred the 5 manifestations, the Paravasudevan, as equivalent to Avarna Jalam. Okay, Avarna Jalam is water that is somewhere in the sky, somewhere else, which you and I can't see, but we know there is water. So that is called Avarna Jalam. So that is the equivalent of Paravasudevan. We know Paramapadam is there. We know Paravasudevan is sitting there, but it's not accessible. We know that's all. Then comes Tiruparkadal, which is the Vyuha Vasudevan. It is Tiruparkadal, as it says, it's full of milk. First glass, it will be tasty, nice. Second glass we can have, but after that, what happens? It's there. We can also see, probably with our bhakti, we can even go to Tiruparkadal, but the utility of Tiruparkadal is very limited because I can't keep drinking milk all the time, maybe the first 2 glasses. Then Vibhava Avataram is called Perukatru. So Perukatru Vellam is what it says. Like we all just experienced, people in Chennai had floods, Bangalore had floods, we saw floods everywhere. They come in a flash like that, they stay there for 1 or 2 days max, after that they just disappear. We don't even know where the water is. Just like that, Vibhava Avataram has a short time span. And as I said, Narasimha Avatara was the shortest, 1.5 hours max. And you have Rama Avatara, Krishna Avatara, which is longest, but they all had a time period. We all know it happened, but can we go and access that time? We can't access. So, Perikatru Pole Vibhavam. Just like floods, flash flowing floods, Vibhava avatars will come and go. Then Bhutaka Jalam Pole Antaryami. There is enormous amount of water under the ground. Can we take a glass of water? We need to dig deep, have some apparatus, even take a glass of water. Just like that, we all know Antaryami Perumal is there. We all realize. But to dig him and worship him and enjoy him, that needs a lot of digging using bhakti, digging using shraddha and love and affection towards him. So Bhutaka Jalam Pole Antaryami. Then what is more accessible? Tengiya Madu Pole Archai. Though less like the pond, the reservoirs, or water tanks, or even our water bottles at home, it is accessible. It is there when we are thirsty, we can go access, have a glass of water, any amount of water. And that is how this Archa Roopam is important. So the worshipping in temples is extremely important to realize that it is in his benevolence that he is showing himself in these forms, and that and they have that accessibility. So we always, one term is called Saulabhyam. We also say Susilam as one name, Saulabhyam as the other term. Susila is a name coming from Saulabhyam. Saulabhyam is basically accessibility, right? So Paratvam, he says Parvasa, he's supreme, he's so big, everything, we always have a fear. So Paratvam Kande Anjameke Saulabhyam. Say, don't worry, don't fear me, I'm here, I'm accessible to you in all these temples, I'm accessible to Antaryami. So Saulabhyam. But when somebody is very accessible, we all take it for granted. So Saulabhyam Kante Igadameke Paratvam. So when he tries to take him for granted, he says, boss, you know who I am? I am Vasudevan, I am the Supreme. So Paratvam Kanda Anjameki Saulabhyam, Saulabhyam Kanda Igadameki Paratvam. We always have to remember this balance. And he is accessible, but he is supreme. So that is very important. On these temples, we talked about Divya Desams, we talked about many things around it. So important is how these temples are formed. There are some temples, in fact to be exact, 8 Perumal Kovils, which are called Swayam Vekta Kshetra. Of the Archa Rupa temples, there are 8 temples which just Swayambhu on its own came up. People later would have constructed the outer walls and all that. The temple on its own came, or Perumal manifested himself, Swayam. Then there are Devasthalams, like Guru Vayur, we know, was established by Guru and Vayu. So Guru Vayur are Devasthalam. Like this, there are many Devasthalams. Then there are many sthalams which are called Siddhasthalams. Siddhars and Rishis would have installed those temples or constructed those temples. Then we have Paurnika Sthalam, very, very ancient temples which have been coming for years and years and generations. They are Paurnika Sthalam. Then Manusha Sthalam. Then kings and others are big, wealthy merchants, predominantly kings and austeriors, would have constructed those temples. They are all called Manusha Sthalam. So we have Swayam Vekta Kshetram, we have Devasthalam, we have Siddhasthalam, we have Paurnika Sthalam, and we have Manusha Sthalam. Out of the Swayam Vekta Kshetram, I said there are 8 Swayam Vekta Kshetrams on its own. Srirangam is a Swayam Vekta Kshetram. We know how Srirangam was formed, right? The Ranganatha that we worship here today was worshipped by Sri Rama in Ayodhya in Treta Yuga. So after the Rama Ravana Yuddham, as a gratitude within quotes towards Vibhishana's support, Rama gives the best gift that Ath Perumal you go and worship him. So when Vibhishana carries that Ranganatha with all care towards Sri Lanka, he decides to park what is today Sri Rangam to perform his daily routines. When he parked, Ranganatha says, I'm not coming from here, you go to Lanka, I will bless you from here, which later became Sri Rangam. It also has, we will speak about Divya Desams in a specific episode, but that is how it became a Swayam Vekta Kshetra. Perumal decided to come there, so Sri Rangam. Tirupati Perumal, we know, he is also another Swayam Vekta Kshetram. The next is Tirupati Perumal. Then Badrikashramam is another Swayam Vekta Kshetram. Saligramam or Muktinath in current day Nepal is another Swayam Vekta Kshetram. Naimisha Aranyam, a whole Aranyam itself is Perumal, which is in Uttar Pradesh. So that is another Swayam Vekta Kshetram. Nanguneri, Totatrinathan Perumal in Tirunelveli is another Swayam Vekta Kshetram. Pushkaram in Rajasthan, Pushkar, is a Swayam Vekta Kshetram. And Sri Mushnam, which is very close to Chennai, but 4.5 to 5 hours drive near Virudhachalam, is another Swayam Vekta Kshetram. Sri Mushnam is another lovely temple I would recommend to go. It's a very small Bhuvaraha Murti, but amazing Purana behind it and all that. It's a savor to be enjoyed in that Perumal. And also the amount of work that is done in and around the code. So these are the 8 Swayam Vekta Kshetrams. So, so that is how it's Perumal manifests himself in Archa Rupa. So we discussed about Kovil, Tirumalai Perumal Kovil. Then Melakottai Tirunarayanapuram is also worshipped as another important temple as part of our daily routines. As I said, when we take the two steps in 4 directions, the fourth direction is where we go towards Melakote. Melakote, Tirunarayanapuram is where Bhagavad Sri Ramanuja and Swami Desika and other acharyas have performed a lot of Kaingarya, and there he is called Sampath Kumaran or Selva Pillai in Tamil. Also, he is called as Chella Pillai. That is a very interesting Purana. And the Mughal invasion, when they massacred the whole places and around Mysore and all that, Ramanuja comes in search of Perumal. Everybody says there was a Perumal Murti, but he's not there. Then he says, but probably the king has taken it. Then they realize the king's young daughter is using the Perumal as a toy. So he goes to the king, and king says, I don't know, I sent all these things elsewhere. No, then Ramanuja says, no, it is there in the toy. The king, obviously a typical Mughal king, he mocks at him. You say your God has got powers. So call him. If he comes, you take him with you, is what he says. So Ramanuja sits and with, of course, Ramanuja's bhakti, we don't have to say, he's Adisesha himself as incarnated. So he says, Chella Pillai Inge Varu. So Perumal comes running in his idol form and sits in the laps of Ramanuja. It's an amazing thing. That's why Selva Pillai, Sampath Kumaran, is also Chella Pillai. If all the Kovils have Vishwarupam normally at 5:30 in the morning, Melakote is the only temple which will have Vishwarupam at 8:30 or 9, because it's Sella Pillai. Our man likes to take more extra sleep and all that. And there is also called, the Tayar is called Edugiri Nachyar. So the Tayar, if you go and have, worship there in Melakote, you will find Tayar's eyes slightly lowering, seeing the ground. Because the next Sanadi is Ramanuja's Sanadi, and because Perumal becomes Selva Pillai of Ramanuja, Ramanuja becomes the Mamanar of Tayar. So sitting in front of Mamanar, Tayar is showing a little bit of lajja and kind of blush, and then eyes are lowered down a bit. This is an amazing experience. Only in Archa we will get, and because of Perumal Tayar's benevolence that we will get this. These are the kind of things that we do. We worship when we go to the Kovil. Any Kovil we go, we understand the Purana. We understand, if it is Alvar Pasarams, then we understand the Pasarams. If it is a Devadesam. If it is Abhimana Salam, we understand how our Acharyas, Puracharyas have worshipped, or what Kaingaryams they have done. And we go there to enjoy. One of the things I tell people when I talk about it, generally Kovil, Uplipan Koilam Pathirken, Navatirupati Perikam Pathirken, Sydney Perikam Pathirken, Disneyland போயிட்டிருக்கேன் பார்த்திருக்கேன், டிஸ்னிலாண்டும் பார்த்திருக்கேன், சிட்னியும் பார்த்திருக்கேன், நவத்திருப்பதியும் பார்த்திருக்கேன். அப்படின்னா இது பார்க்குற விஷயம் இல்லை. So we go சேவிக்கிறேன். So when we can say பார்க்கிறது is something we just enjoy for the moment and forget it, whether we remember or not doesn't matter. But here it's all about anubhavams of going to the temple, understanding the Puranas. Thanks to internet we can read a lot of things before we go to any temple. So Koil Poet, we understand which Alvara sung on this, what kind of Pasarams, what is the Salapuranam behind this, and all those things. Like for example, Tirupati, we all go worship Perumal and come back. Normal routine in worshipping any Perumal Koil is, you go to the main sanctum, sanctorum, the last. You worship Alvar Acharyas, Garuda Anjaneyar if is there, worship Andal, So you worship Andal and you do all those things and worship Tayar, then go to Perumal. So that is how you do it, because Perumal is supreme. You go to the last. You don't go to the CEO first and then look at others. You go to everybody else and go to the CEO finally. That's the routine that we follow. In Tirupati, we have to mandatorily have Tiruchanur Darshan first and then climb up the Tirumala. Most of us, for want of time, whatever reasons, because of the kind of rules that is there in Tirumala, we go directly and come back. But ideally, we need to factor that we have darshan at Tiruchanur, take the blessings of Tayar, because various Upanyasams by Velukudi, Krishna Swami and other Acharyas clearly say that you go directly to Perumal, you only look at all our bad things that we have done. If you go to Tayar and go, Tayar already sends a word of recommendation. There is a conversation that will happen between Tayar and Perumal. So it is extremely important. We go to Tayar first and then go to Perumal. And Tirupati, all the more important, we go to Bhuvaraha Sannadhi first near the Pushkarani, Swami Pushkarani, and then go to Perumal, because Bhuvaraha is the Sthala Adhipati of the Perumal itself. So That is very important. How do we know that part about it? This Purana is clearly established. But if you look at Swami Nammalvar's Thiruvaimozhi, there's a beautiful 10 pasaram starting with Vadivil Kalamallam. All 10 pasarams dedicated to Tirupati Perumal. In one of the pasarams, he says, Kundramendi Kulurmalai Kattavan, Andru Nyala Malanda Piran, Paran Sendru Ser Thiruvengadamamale, Undrume Thoda Nambinai Oyume, is what Swami Nammalvar says. Sendru Ser is the keyword. So it was not his place. He went and stood there. The original place, it's not Vandu Ser. Aathukku Vandute is what you say, because that's our place. Office is send because that's a small place, we'll come back again. It's not our place. So Tamil is very like that. So Sendru Ser is the keyword here, where we know that this place belongs to Varahamurti, and Tirupati Perumal, Thiruvengadamudaiyan is there with the permission of what do you call Varahamurti. So we go Tiruchanur first, Varahamurti next, and then wait in the queue to have darshan of Thiruvengadamudaiyan. So like this, there are a lot of rules, but again, coming back to it, it is the worship in Archa form is what matters. And worshipping in Archa form is basically the benevolence and the anubhavams that we get. Thirumayyam, for example, it is about 2 hours drive from Madurai, Pudukkottai district. One temple I've had 2 darshans in the last few years. One I won't mind going again and again. One, a kovil inside a rock, beautifully done in rock. Pudukkottai is full of rocks. So beautifully done inside the rock. There are 2 Moolavars, Satyamurti Perumal in standing posture and Thirumayyan in reclining posture. The reclining posture Thirumayyan is a sight to see, and one, the Sannidhi itself is huge, that you can have very close access to a lying down Perumal, Sayana Perumal like that. Ranganathan, you don't get so much of access. Thiruvananthapuram, you don't get so much of access. You go here, you will find out that in such beautiful way that you have this Perumal in a form where Madhu Kaidaba are coming to abduct Sridevi and Bhudevi Tayar. Perumal is sleeping, Sridevi Bhudevi Tayar is with Perumal, and Madhu Kaidaba Asuras are having the gall to kidnap Tayar, both Sridevi and Bhudevi Tayar. Adiseshan is furious, how dare you come? And he starts emitting fires. This is all in the murals you can see. The Perumal and Adiseshan will be all attached to a wall. So the whole Vigraham you can see with all the murals with fire and all that. Then you will, Adiseshan realizes, I am overreacting. Perumal himself is here, who am I to react? And you will see the hood of Adiseshan shrunking in shy and being sorry that he overreacted in presence of Perumal. And you will see Perumal's hand patting Adiseshan, says, don't worry. And you will see Bhumi Devi Perumal with kind of, what do you say, cuddling herself in the divine feet of Perumal. And Sridevi Tayar just goes inside the Vachasthalam of Perumal. All these anubhavams, you will see that in an Archa Murti in Thirumayyam. And it's a kovil that where no rush is there. If you go at 9 o'clock and all that for hours together till they close the kovil, you can have darshan of this and keep reminding ourselves as many times as we want. An amazing anubhavam. Perumal patting Adiseshan shrinking in shame, or even Bhayam on Perumal because he overreacted. It's all outstanding anubhavam. All this comes in the manifestation of Archarupa. So overall, to sum up, we discussed about 5 manifestations of Perumal. Para Vasudevan in Sri Vaikuntham or Paramapadam, Vyuha Vasudevam in Tirupparkadal, where he further manifests himself as Vasudevan, Shankarshanan, Pradyumnan and Aniruddhan. Then we have the Vibhava form, which is the avatars or the incarnations that he takes. The 4th manifestation is Antaryami, where is inside each one of us. And 5th is the Archa roopam, where he shows himself as a simple Saligrama Murti in our homes, as well as big Murtis in all those kovils that we go and worship. And we have to have that kind of love and bhakti towards all Perumal kovils, particularly the Divyadesams. In Srirangam, we'll talk specifically, our Acharyas have given their lives. There are many who gave their lives to protect the temple from the marauding Mughals. And how they protected big knowledge, how they protected the Perumal, everything's there. So every kovil that we have is an anubhavam by itself. It is important we know the Sthala Purana. We go to Maduranthakam, for example. The Moolavar, the one and for this kind of kovils I have been blessed to have darshan with, Maduranthakam could be the only one where Rama is holding the hands of Sita. Moolavar. It's an outstanding thing. We may have to ask the Archakar to show that and save Pandit. I mean, you would be enthralling to see Perumal holding Tayar's hands. in the Muluvar in Maduranthagam, which is very close, 1 hour drive we can have. And that is a Kshetram where Ramanuja had his Pancha Samskaram. Pancha Samskaram or Samashranam is the first step for somebody to become Iyengar. Again, another 5 that is coming relevant to our topic is Pancha Samskaram. We'll talk in detail about all this later. But Anju Karanangal Panindavanga Iyengar. So, அந்த ராமானுஜருக்கு அவரோட ஆச்சாரியர் பண்ணி வச்ச இடம் மதுராந்தகம் அந்த கோயிலுக்குள்ள. So every kovil has its own Puranam, every kovil its own Anubhavam. And as I said, Melakote, you will see Tayar with the eyes slightly lowering down. All these Anubhavams are amazing and sometimes goosebumps when you see. So with this, thank you for the opportunity and I'm open for questions.